Okay, let's talk about one of the biggest moves the Detroit Red Wings made at the NHL trade deadline, acquiring veteran defenseman Justin Faulk, because this is exactly the kind of move that signals a team believes it's ready to compete right now. For a franchise that has been trying to claw its way back into the playoffs after nearly a decade long drought, this wasn't a small depth move. This was a statement from general manager Steve Yzerman that the Red Wings are trying to push their way into the postseason and finally end that long playoff absence. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm very happy about this. I thought it was a good move. I'm gonna get into that. But the deal itself was significant. Detroit sent a package that included defenseman Justin Hall, prospect Dmitry Buchelnikov, and both the first and third round pick in the 2026 draft to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for Falk, a veteran right shot defenseman with more than 1,000 NHL games of experience. And that right shot element is key because Detroit has been looking for stability on the right side of their defense for a while now. And Falk immediately steps into a top four role, and that alone could change the dynamic of the blue line. What the Red Wings are getting is a proven two-way defenseman who can contribute in a lot of different situations. He isn't just a defensive specialist. He's a player who can move the puck, contribute offensively, and log serious minutes. This season alone, he had 11 goals and 32 points in 61 games before the trade, which is very strong production for a defenseman. When you combine that with his experience running power plays and handling heavy defensive assignments, you're talking about a player who can stabilize multiple aspects of the lineup. And that's really the key to understanding this move. The Red Wings didn't make this trade because they're rebuilding. They made it because they believe they're in the playoff race and they want to solidify the roster for the stretch run. At the time of the trade, Detroit was already sitting in a playoff position in the Eastern Conference and battling near the top of the Atlantic Division. Now, when you're in that position, the trade deadline becomes about fixing weaknesses. And one of the areas Detroit clearly wanted to strengthen was the defense. You also have to look at the bigger picture of the Red Wings season. This team has been close to the playoffs the last couple of years, but hasn't quite been able to get over the hump. They've had stretches where they look like a legitimate postseason team, only to stumble late in the year and fall out of the race. In fact, recent reporting pointed out that Detroit held a wild card spot around March the past two seasons, but faded down the stretch both times. That's part of the reason a move like this matters so much. It's about making sure that late season collapse doesn't happen again. And I've talked in some of my other segments about why this season matters for Yzerman. The amount of time he's had to get there. Adding Faulk gives Detroit something they've been missing, a reliable veteran presence on the back end who's been through playoff battles before. When you look at teams that make deep runs in the postseason, they almost always have experienced defensemen who can handle pressure situations. Faulk has played in those environments before, including deep playoff runs earlier in his career. That kind of experience can be invaluable when the games get tighter and the stakes get higher. And there's also a trickle-down effect this trade could have across this lineup, because when you bring in a defenseman who can play big minutes, it takes the pressure off everybody else. Suddenly, other defenders don't have to carry as much of the load. Pairings become more balanced. The coaching staff has more flexibility with its matchups. And the goaltending can benefit too, because stronger defense typically means fewer high-danger chances against. But of course, moves like this come with a price. Detroit had to give up a first-round pick in the deal, which shows just how serious they are about competing right now. Draft picks are the lifeblood of rebuilding teams, and giving one up means the Red Wings believe their window is opening. They're essentially saying the future is important, but winning right now matters more. And that's really the bigger storyline around this team, because for years, Red Wings fans have heard about patience, development, and the long rebuild under Yzerman, but moves like this signal a shift. The rebuild phase is starting to transition into a contention phase, and that's what we all want to see. The expectation now isn't just improvement, it's making the playoffs and eventually competing for the Stanley Cup. This is Hockey Town. The time of that trade also adds another layer of urgency. The Red Wings are in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoff race, and every point matters. And with standings as tight as they are, a few strong defensive performances can be the difference between securing a playoff spot or watching from home again. Adding Faulk is about making sure the team is better equipped for that fight down the stretch. Now, of course, a trade like this doesn't automatically guarantee success. I'm not saying that. Hockey is unpredictable, it's a tough league, and the Eastern Conference specifically is loaded with strong teams. But what it does do is give Detroit a better chance. It strengthens the defense, it adds experience to the locker room, and sends a message to the players that management believes in them. And honestly, that message might be just as important as the player himself. When a team sees its front office willing to spend assets at the trade deadline, it tells the locker room one thing: that we are all in, that the time is right now. And so when you look at the Faulk trade, it's about more than just adding a defenseman. It's about the Red Wings trying to take the next step as a franchise. It's about ending the long playoff drought here, stabilizing the defense, and proving that Detroit is finally ready to be a serious contender again. And if Faulk plays the role the team expects him to play, this could end up being one of the most important moves of the entire Red Wings season. Keep it locked. You're listening to Midnight Sports Detroit.